So if you're doing this job, I would order some of these expansion clips ahead of time. I have broken all but one, trying to get them out. What's supposed to happen normally is the center screw should come out so that the clip gets smaller and you can just pull it out, but they seem to just spin and really fight with you. So there seem to be 6. 1, 2, 3, and another 3 on the other side. So according to the instructions, you're supposed to be able to pull this ducting out at the side. If I look at the instructions here, remove expansion clips and pull air ducting, item number 8, which is right there, at the side. But I'm kind of having trouble doing that. I don't know if there's an expansion clip down there that I'm missing or what's going on. So I'm gonna maybe try and skip this and see if it could be pulled out later, and just move on to the next step, which is remove radiator bracket, item number 6 right there. So that's these little guys. You just pull out, pull up I should say, on this centerpiece. I've already got this one loose, but then you just push in on both sides of these clips when this is up, and then just kind of comes out. So that's what that looks like when it's removed. I guess that holds the radiator in place and prevents movement. So that's what that looks like. Down here is the cable. It's a little spring which prevents it from backing out, so you pull up on that, and then I can't do this with one hand, but I can do it with my finger. You basically get that cable down and out, and then it should be free. There's also an electrical connector on the back if you want to get this completely out, but that's a little tip there. All right, that was pretty tricky. Might have difficulty unless you have really small hands, but I was barely able to get in there with a tiny little ratchet and a little screwdriver socket. They are T20 bolts. And so the next step is to take out this little screw right here. Same T20 looks like, so that we can get this lower radiator pipe off of that fan shroud. So next step is to very gently remove this upper coolant hose from the clip that's supposed to be here, which I broke, so keep that in mind to be very gentle. And get this upper hose out of the way. There's one of these metal spring retainer clips around it, so you can access the electrical connector on the fan right here, which is the next step to unclip that. And I'm also draining the coolant right now. There's a petcock in the lower left corner. So just get that done while you're getting everything else out of the way. Alright, so we got the fan shroud out. The instructions call for some kind of guard plate. I guess you could make that out of cardboard, but since this one's broken, I don't think it really needs to be protected. Remove front section of lower engine paneling, done that. Drain coolant, done that. Remove oil cooler. So this is the step that I would like to skip. I think this is the oil cooler for active body control. That goes somewhere over there, and then this must be the AC condenser, maybe transmission cooler, AC condenser, and then radiator. I'm not sure what the order is, but I'd like to not disconnect this if possible to avoid, bleeding the circuit and all that stuff. Same with the AC, so I'll see what's possible to just kind of do a replacement without disconnecting that stuff, but we might have to. Anyway, this next step after that is to remove the pump for the low temperature circuit, which is just right here. This guy right here. So it's got an electrical connector and probably some hoses, so you're gonna get started on that. All right, so from what I can tell on this low pressure circuit for the intercooler, you should be able to just tuck it out of the way, which I've done here. There's one nut right here, which holds on a clamp, which you can undo and just kind of tuck this out of the way. Sorry, I'm kind of zoomed in so I can show you what I think is holding this bracket on. Is one bolt there, one nut there. There's another bolt down here. Zoom out. So one bolt there, one up there, and a nut. And then there's another bolt. It's pretty impossible to get on camera, but it's somewhere up into the back. I don't know if you can see. There's the hole. I've already taken it out, but you get in there with an extension and you should be able to get that bolt out. So I'm pretty sure that you can do this by just tucking this out of the way and then getting this bracket off, which will then enable you to take this radiator support down and out. So I'm going to get those upper bolts, the bolt and the nut, undone and see where to go from here. Alright, so managed to get this air ducting out. It's pretty much impossible to record, and definitely need both hands. But what worked for me is kind of pulling up and twisting, would that be counterclockwise, on the passenger side and clockwise on the driver's. How do these go? Kind of like this, I guess. And then did a bit of a twist that way. It definitely helps to have this bottom panel out because you can do a bit of pushing and poking You definitely have to work these lines to kind of get them free of the various, you know, kind of holding things. This one's a little beat up. It looks like one of the little retainers down here snapped, but it's just an air duct, so I figure it's not the end of the world. It's definitely a bear to get out, but it's necessary because it exposes a lot of these clips and bolts and whatnot, so definitely get those air ducts out. Alright, so at this stage, now that the air ducting is out, you can get the condenser free of these clips by pushing in from the top and the bottom on these plastic retaining tabs, which are part of the radiator. Use a set of pliers, or maybe just your fingers if you're, you know, able to. And then this will be able to, you know, slide slightly off of its mounting tab. And the same thing goes for this side. So I'll get that loose and we'll move on. All right, so now that we've got the condenser loose on both sides, you can see if we push the radiator back, then we should be able to clear that. And I think all that's left is the engine oil cooler, which is mounted on the front here. And there's a bracket which I think goes up, hooks into and attaches to the radiator. And I think that's what it's caught up on at this point. The service manual states that you need to remove this, what's it called, radiator support, but that slides out downward, so I don't see how that would prevent the radiator from sliding up. If that goes down, then putting the radiator up seems to be the same thing. So I'm gonna remove, there's two bolts that hold, you can just see one there and another one there, so two on each side, which hold this on. And the manual states to remove the oil cooler and just kind of secure it with a zip tie, so I'm gonna give that a try. All right, so we got those 4 bolts out. They are really tough to get to. You can barely get a ratchet in there, but that's what I ended up doing, just really kind of finessing a little 10 mil. They are 10 mil bolts on either side. And then this bracket that attaches to it seems to come a little loose. It wants to slide to the left. I don't know if you can see that, but there's the mounting tab on the radiator, and there you can see I slid it a little to the left, so it kind of slides back and forth. I'm assuming once it goes far enough left, it'll be free. However, when I pull up on the radiator itself, the condenser and all that does seem to be still pretty well attached, so I'm going to do some double checking and see what else could possibly, oh, hold it on. Looks like it might just kind of lift out, but we'll just make sure. So I'll be right back. All right, so what I've done is taken the oil cooler and basically lowered it down like one length of itself, if that makes sense. So this used to be up here, and that exposes kind of the bottom left corner of the radiator. And some real tricky stuff they've got going on here. Looks like there's a clip in the radiator that needs to be released, maybe with a pair of pliers like this, and pulled out. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, it's pretty much necessary to get access to these two corners here. And what it looks like is going on there is there's a little clip, and I'll go over to the new radiator to show you what I think is going on. Is I think that's clipping right into here. So this is the bottom left corner of the new radiator, and I think this is what's happening in both corners. Shout out to JB Weld and Rock Auto, of course, because where's the repair? Oh yeah, up here, one of these little plastic tabs snapped off, so I have to do a quick little JB Weld job. I don't know if that's visible. Yeah, right there. So I'm sure it'll hold the condenser on just fine, but yeah, always double check your parts. So anyway, I'm gonna get to work on those corners down there. Unbelievable. So I finally got this out. Somehow, I think without breaking it. Seems pretty chewed up, but you can see how that kind of sits in there. You need to push up on that bottom tab, which is wiggling, and that sits inside the radiator. Yeah, that fought me for a good 10-15 minutes. And then all that's left is this condenser. Slides up out of this kind of slot tab. See if I can get it back in. That's kind of, there we go. So you just kind of pop that out, let that sit, and now to do the same on the other side. Oh, all right. So I got the bottom of the driver's side loose. What I did was pulled while holding this front part, and I got a pry bar in underneath, and let's see if I can reproduce what I did. Is I kind of levered on it from this side and pulled forward, and now we got that loose. So now we got to figure out how to disentangle the condenser, and the radiator should come out. Oh, and before I forget, better remove these transmission oil cooler lines. So there's a little boot protective dust cap that should slide off. There we go. Alright, so it turns out these transmission lines just unthread like that, which is probably a lot easier because I've been fighting with the clip on that bottom one for quite a while, and I think it's just going to be easier to unthread it with some channel locks, because that mounting clip is in the way. Pretty nasty location. You can't get it from the bottom or the top or the side. It seems like the only way is from the far passenger side, and that's completely obstructed, so I'm just going to unthread that and get the clip later. Alright, so the last thing I'm getting hung up on now is the drain plug on the radiator is hitting this AC line on the way up. You can see I've got a long zip tie around it, so I can try and finagle it. I can pull it up and to the right while I pull the radiator up and to the left. So that seems to be the last piece of this puzzle. So I'm going to fight with this for about 10-15 minutes and see if I can figure out a better way. Alright, well, I've been fighting this drain plug air conditioning interference for long enough. I think it's time to cut my losses. I think that's the purpose of removing the lower radiator support, is so that this air conditioning line has the freedom to move out of the way to the side, because there's literally just not enough clearance by maybe 5 millimeters or even a centimeter. It's pretty frustrating, but I'm gonna see what I can do about getting these big honking Torx bolts out. I don't have the proper socket, so I might have to go make a quick curbside pickup run. So I'll be back soon. So I got the socket. I got a full set, actually. It's a pretty big size, T55, and zips right out. And those chunky bolts that hold this support on. So you can see that's where it used to be. And we'll do the other side, and there's also these little 10mm bolts, which are pretty hard to get to. Well, at least on this side, it's just covered in hoses and just a pain, so time to get to work on that. Alright, so these big two are out, and got these front side two out. I ended up stringing together just a whole bunch of extensions so I can kind of get a proper purchase on it. It was kind of awkward dealing with these hard lines going to this cooler, so I found it easier to just go all the way from out here. Last but not least, there are two more 10mm screws. Where's this one? It's gonna be somewhere up there. So on the outside of the support at the top somewhere, according to the diagram. So I'll try and find those. Well, it's somewhere up there, I can tell you that much. And all these hoses are in the way, and the horn, and everything's just making a real frustrating time. Maybe this angle shows it. There's that bolt. That sucker, it's not focusing. Come on, there you go. See him? Oh, he's hiding. He does not want to be touched. Yeah, there's a lot that's in the way, and you just can't get like a socket or a wrench in there. I can just barely touch it with my finger. That one sucker is all that's holding this radiator support on, which we can then move slightly and get this AC line slightly over and out of the way. So I guess next step is to take this horn out. Alright, so finally got this tiny little 10mm sucker out up there. So the right tool for this job is absolutely this kind of a flex head ratcheting box end wrench. This one's got a 12-point head. Went out and got this. It's pretty much the only thing that can fit in there and latch on and get a good turn going. So find someone with small excuse me, with small hands, because it is super tight in there. You need basically one finger to push down on that bolt to keep the head of the wrench on, and then your other hand to turn the wrench. And yeah, obviously this horn did not want to come out. The captive nut for that bolt seems to just be loose, so this got stuck. Had to work around that, and it's a real pain. But the good news is this radiator support is free now. I don't know if you can see, I'll zoom in, but that is the last sucker that's standing in our way of getting this radiator support out. So again, a pretty tight space. I think that that ratcheting wrench that I just got is gonna come in very handy here to kind of just slip my hand up in there and get a bit of wiggle room purchase on it. So we're gonna get that out. All right, that's another bolt out. I can see how in the instructions, so it does say to remove the right front fanfare horn, because that does quite get in the way up there, but I was able to sneak my combination wrench in between there. So this is the horn right here. What a terrible angle. I'm sorry for the camera quality, but I was able to just barely sneak in a wrench into that space and not have to remove this horn there. So yeah, at this point this support bracket should be pretty much free to kind of drop down and out. So we're gonna give that a shot and hopefully be on the home stretch of getting this damn radiator out. So see you on the top side. Success!
That's good.
Oh my goodness, took me a day. All right, finally, that is a relief to finally get that bad boy out. So once that lower bracket was removed, we were able to push that air conditioning line a little more to the side and finagle some of these power steering lines and whatnot out of the way, and out she came. So now it's just a matter of cleaning up our work area a little bit. We got this bracket out, so we'll give that a little bit of a wash, and same thing with the general area. We'll get all the leaves and debris and all the dirt out. There's some rubber kind of seals that are all covered in crud, so get that cleaned up. And now's as good a time as any to change out the serpentine belt, probably the most room you're ever going to have. So I don't know, if while you're in here, do the timing chain, do everything that you possibly can, because you got plenty of access to the front of the engine at this point. So we're just going to verify fitment with our new part over there. That is a Nissan's unit. I believe the original is a Bear. I don't know where we might see that, but anyway, the place where it was leaking is over here on the driver's side, air inlet. I don't know if you can kind of see, there's a big crack going up the side right here. You can see where I kind of tried to epoxy it just to buy a little more time, but she was spilling probably a liter just driving or at idle and just kind of pouring all over. So not a very good fix. So just gotta switch it out and hope that the same thing doesn't happen to the new one, because it seems like a design flaw or something. I don't know why they would put you know, a water channel so close to plastic, which is probably mounting and vibrating. And oh well, we'll live to drive another day and die another day. So we'll get this changed out with the new one and hopefully show just a time lapse of that, because yeah, installation is just the reverse of removal. So now that we know how everything comes out, we know how to put everything back together. We got all our, you know, little plastic bits and screws and everything over there. So yeah, just gonna take it nice and slow. We know that the hard part is behind us, and now we can just get this thing buttoned back up, flush some water and coolant through it, and call it a day.